see it here on the right hand side. These interesting looking rock formations over here that we call Rødhålar, the Red Hills. You can see why we call them the Red Hills. Underneath the green moss we've got this rusty red gravelly rock underneath. Rødhålar are what are called pseudo-craters. Pseudo-craters, they form during an eruption when lava flows over marshland or shallow water and traps all this water underneath it. Now lava's pretty hot stuff. The average temperature of flowing molten lava is around 1200 degrees centigrade. It's about 2100 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty hot stuff. Traps all this water underneath it, heats that water till it goes way beyond boiling temperature, evaporates and becomes pressurized steam. And then as the temperature of this water increases, it builds up pressure underneath the lava till finally it reaches bursting point. The steam can't withstand this pressure any longer and it explodes its way up through the lava, forming these amazing looking craters, pseudo-craters as we call them. Now unfortunately many of the pseudo-craters here at Rødhålar were somewhat destroyed during the Second World War. I'm wondering, I'm just going to maybe turn the mic down a little bit, I feel like it might be a bit loud. Yeah, okay, is this better? Maybe. So yeah, I felt like maybe it was a bit too loud. So during the Second World War, Iceland was occupied by Allied forces during the war. The British Army came here in May of 1940. The Americans came about a year later, and for a short transitional period, the Brits and the Americans worked together before the British Army left, and the Americans remained for the duration of the war. Well, one of the first objectives the British Army had on arrival here was to lay down a landing strip so that further supplies could be flown into the country. And unfortunately, they found the best material for this landing strip right here at Rødhålar. So, yeah, British troops had diggers sent up here to dig up this beautiful natural site. I'd like to think that today the Icelandic government would have never given permission for such a thing, but unfortunately people were a little less environmentally conscious back in the 1940s. So I'm afraid, yeah, they came and dug up this beautiful natural site. We can actually still see the landing strip that the troops laid down around 80 years ago. We're still using it. In fact, you probably spotted it as we left the BSI terminal just earlier. Just on the other side of the main road, we have the Reykjavik domestic airport. So that's, yeah, the same landing strip that was originally laid down by British troops during the war. Now, we've done a really good job here in Iceland. We've saved an absolute fortune over the years having foreign forces build our major airports, because not long after the Second World War, I mean, obviously the Americans left when the war was over, but they didn't leave for long. They came back in 1951, and the reason the Americans came back if we've had so many accidents. We bring people here because it's beautiful. What we're trying to sell people here in Iceland is unspoiled nature. And this is a prime example of it. It's a beautiful place that we want people to come and visit. We just want people to be careful when they do it. What makes this place special is not only the beach itself, but also the cliffs around the Reynisfjara are made up of this type of rock formation called basalt columns. And basalt columns form when lava cools very quickly. In this case, it reached the ocean. The ocean waves wash up against it, and so the lava cools very quickly. And what happens is, it cools very quickly. The surface cools, solidifies, contracts, and cracks. And it will tend to crack into these kind of like hexagon-shaped like tiles. And then as the lava then continues to cool and solidify deeper and deeper, it will continue to crack along the same line. So by the time it's fully solidified, you've got these giant hexagon shaped columns of basalt rock that look absolutely amazing. And the whole cliff face here is made up of these basalt columns. So please, like I said, go and look at them and all of that, but keep an eye on the sea. It's also always good advice to try and avoid having your back towards the water. At least you want to see it coming, so you can at least prepare yourself if you really need to backtrack a little bit. So please keep that in mind as well. Try at all costs to avoid having your back towards the water. Now, I also mentioned that this is a prime place to spot puffins. So again, if you just look at like above the rocks in the soft soil, you'll see them. You'll also often see them flying out into the sea to get some food. You can usually spot them from the gulls. The gulls have long wings and they flap their wings quite slowly. Puffins have really short wings. They're small birds, but they've got really, really short wings. So to keep themselves airborne, they got to flap those wings at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you can always tell the puffins, they're the ones with really small wings, and they're going brrr, flapping their wings as fast as they can. So this is usually how you can spot when the puffins are swimming or flying down into the water to go and get themselves something to eat. A town called Vík, and in Vík we're going to have our lunch break. This whole area called Reyniskerfi and the town of Vík lie under the shadow of a sleeping giant. It's been hard to tell because unfortunately visibility has been absolutely dreadful all day, but for a large portion of the trip we've had a quite large glacier on our left hand side called Mýrdalsjökull, Iceland's 5th biggest glacier piece of ice. It will float on top of water, just like an ice cube in your drink. So when that pocket of water under the glacier reaches a sufficient size, that section of the glacier will break away from the ground and start floating on top of all this water. Well, when this happens, all the water flushes out from underneath, and you get these really disastrous floods. They'll tear whole sections of road out, they'll tear bridges from their foundation like they're nothing, and heaven forbid if they hit any like farmhouses or villages, they won't have a chance. So we really don't like these glacial floods. The other thing we don't like about them is the ash. These subglacial eruptions, well, the problem is that at the eruption site you've got a lot of water, and as the water comes into contact with the eruption site,
að fjölga. Áður var þetta eiginlega alltaf svona nánast tómt. Það er mjög illa nýtt þetta stæði.
Já.
En furðulega lítið að fólk nota þetta. Það er náttúrulega einhver sem hefur lagt þetta sér, bara lagt þetta sér og svo það lítur að labba þarna baka eða ekki bila það eitthvað. Sástu hérna póstið frá honum Birni? Varðandi streaming, það er bara...
Já, ég sá það.
Það er svo verið að draga aðeins í land með þetta, hann er einhvern veginn að gefa grænt ljós á þá sem hann enn ekki að... eða eitthvað. Ekki að vinna þetta í aukavinnu og svo bara að rífa bílarna inni svona á sólarhring. Eða svona, það var svona innihald í þessum posti frá honum, sýnir mig það.
Sko, mér finnst það svo sem allt í lagi, eins og hérna þegar ég var að vinna í Teiti til dæmis.
Já.
Þá fékk maður reyndar alltaf borgað á hverju degi klukkutíma í yfir til að þrífa.
Já, ég skilst að Magga Rafsa líka verið þarna hjá, það var hann hjá Reykjavík Sightseeing, hann svo sagt, jú, hann leggar hann.
Jú, var það sama reglan þar?
Já, þannig að þeir fengur svona bónus, þetta er þrifabónus.
Já.
2 tímar á eitthvað eða hvað það var. Gert ráð fyrir og ef að hérna bílinn var óþrifinn, eftir að þú var svona notan, þá var það dregið frá þig. Dregið af. Þannig að þú kannski ekki komist upp með það að bara þú skrifa bónusinn og hérna gera eitthvað smávegis, þú veist. En það var náttúrulega ef að sá sem tekur við bílnum daginn eftir hann kvartar undan þig, þá kemur það þessi mínus í kvartan hjá þér, þannig að þú...
Ég man einu sinni einmitt á meðan hérna Eyjafjallajökulgosið var í gangi.
Já.
Það var einmitt einn sem hringdi í mig alveg fjúkandi við. Það stóð ekki á svona bíl í gær og ég var bara, já, af hverju varstu ekki að þrífa bílinn? Ég bara, ég þreif bílinn. Ég sagði, nei, ég stend við bílinn núna, hann er haugskítur. Lítur alveg hræðilega út, ég bara, Mér fannst líka skrítið, það hefði verið þurrt daginn áður. Bíllinn var eiginlega ekkert sérstaklega ónýtt. En ég þreif hann samt og ég var alveg furðu rosalega. Fannst þetta rosalega skrítið. Ég bara, ok, mér finnst þetta ég hafi þrifað það ekki. En svo kom í fréttunum seinna á daginn. Það var óvenju mikið öskufall yfir